Today is Monday, the 6th of November, 2017. It is block height 493,379. And today's show will be hosted by Shinobi. Come in, Shinobi. How you doing?
Hello, everybody.
Good, good. Who we got today? On the
Mr.
show?
Eric Lombrozo. Applause.
Hey, guys. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you back. Fantastic.
And then we got our usual cast, Rick.
Hey, everybody. How are y'all?
Miss Janine.
Hi.
And Theo Goodman, our rare Pepe expert.
Welcome, everybody.
All right, so I guess we want to just dive right into the chain split mechanism. Hopefully the big problem that's being caused for everybody that we can hopefully find a solution for.
Yeah, why don't we just dig right into that? So yeah, so like a couple of years ago when we were working on when the whole hard fork thing really started to start to gain traction and people were really looking to change consensus rules in incompatible ways. I think most developers kind of freaked out a little bit, and they're like, you know what, this breaks all the science that we know about this, because if the consensus rules don't agree, then we're going to get a split network. And there was no clear way of handling a split network back then. I think that now we've had a lot more experience seeing this happen to other blockchains, and we know a lot more. We have much better science. And I think it's a problem that absolutely needs to be solved, because there will be chain splits. I mean, it's just inevitable that people are going to disagree sometimes, and someone's going to want to try to change consensus rules in some incompatible way. And there needs to be a solution to resolve that, or to make it so that at least it doesn't disrupt the markets in a terrible way that, economically doesn't make sense. It should really discourage attacks and encourage progress, the best that we can do that. So so this chain split project was spurred on by the fact that now we're starting to see all these what are called airdrop forks, which are basically hard forks, incompatible changes to the consensus rules of Bitcoin, but they still leave the ledger state intact at the moment of the fork, which means that people that had coins prior to the fork on the original chain are now going to have coins on both chains. The problem is that moving these coins independently isn't so trivial necessarily. Some airdrops, like for instance the BCH fork, added strong replay protection, and that made sure that transactions that were valid on one chain would not be valid on the other, which made it pretty simple to separate these different UTXOs. But other forks might not do that. The 2x fork that has been proposed, which is supposed to be coming in maybe like a couple of weeks or something like that, it does not have any kind of strong replay protection built in. So this means that these even though users that have these two coins can spend them, spending them independently requires separating them, and this requires using some techniques to make sure that it's done safely. I think that we don't have enough time to really fully, make it like a seamless experience for everyone. In this particular instance, I think we're going to get better at it. But for now, at least, a lot of wallet makers can provide, instructions and tools, and we can provide some utilities and start some kind of API integration at some point to make it easier for users to be able to do these things if there are forks in the future.
Okay, so real quick to kind of bring it down a little for idiots such as myself, the nature of the problem with a chain that doesn't have replay protection is essentially you have to have an input that is in a different place than the other chain. So effectively you have to create first a tainted output, which then can be included in other transactions. Have to actually utilize that in a way most effective to continue tainting as many outputs as possible, and then in the case of a project such as yours, actually deliver that in a way where the user isn't relinquishing control completely at any point. Yeah.
Right. So that's one way to do it for sure. I think that's probably the most general way to do it is if you have a transaction that has at least one input that is only valid on that chain, the entire transaction can only be valid on that chain. So any outputs you create on that transaction are only going to be valid on that chain. So assuming you can get what we're calling split coins, basically coins that have already been split, you can generate more split coins. So even if you have 1 Satoshi of a particular fork coin, split coin that is not valid on the legacy chain, you include that in a transaction that you send, and now it's only valid on the fork chain. It's no longer valid on the legacy chain because that output doesn't exist. So therefore, you're spending bitcoins that don't exist, right? There's several ways to obtain this. One way, which is probably the most, the simplest, but the simplest way in terms of like technically, is for miners to just include, dust in their Coinbase transactions, which others can use as inputs into their own transactions, and that'll make sure that the transactions are only valid if they build on top of the blockchain that contains that block, right? There are other techniques that can be used. For instance, there's n-lock time, and the n-lock time technique makes it so that if the two chains are at different heights, you can make it so that a transaction can confirm on one chain while on the other chain it's still not mature. It still has not reached the time lock, and then you can double spend it on the other chain. And then once both of those are confirmed, then that's another way you've been able to split your UTXOs. All these things have different side complications, but the interesting point is that once you have any amount of split coin, you can create as much as you want. So then the question really is one of privacy, because by using this, you're connecting different transactions potentially, and it could reveal sources of this, or it could link different transactions from your wallet with each other. And so there's an additional, second layer problem, which is how do you use these split coins in a way that will not severely impact your privacy. And one more additional feature which would be really nice is if you can have something like a coin join where multiple parties can enter into a transaction, and then that makes it even more so that it's harder to link things together. So the idea now is to make it as easy as possible first of all, for people to get the information they need to understand what's at stake, what the problem is, why they should care about it, and what they can do about it. Secondly, to provide a reliable source of this split coin. We can buy it directly from miners, or we can create it ourselves, or buy it from people who have created it themselves using something like the unlock time method, or who have obtained it from other sources. So you create this kind of market for split coins, and then once you have those, wallets can easily integrate those into transactions to make sure that those transactions can only be valid on that one chain. In the long run, we'd really like to find a process that's much smoother, that does not require much user intervention and this kind of stuff. But we're still learning a lot of this stuff. So I think that people are still going to have to maybe there's still going to be a little bit of a headache in some areas, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to do this and to become kind of like the best source on the internet where people can come and get information on how they can split their coins so they can trade them independently. And by trading them independently, now if you got an airdrop coin and you don't want to hold it, say that you just don't care about that coin, you don't think it's going to be worth much in the future, you can just sell it in an exchange and then exchange it for the coin that you do want. So that just increases the balance in your wallet for the coin that you do want, right? So that's kind of the idea, just making it easy for people to do that if they want to do that.
So Eric, so let me get this as a TLDR. This is partly a research project, and I have on the screen right now a spreadsheet which seems to have all these categories for different methods and different forks and the different methods for splitting the tokens. But is your concept to create a sort of a turnkey solution that anyone can use, whatever technical, if they're a novice or whether they're an engineer, can anyone use or interface with what you're proposing to build?
Yes, absolutely. That's the goal. I mean, the goal is to make this as simple as possible, as seamless as possible, to make it integrate as smoothly as possible, to create an incentive structure that rewards innovation and creative pursuits, and discourages people attacking the network or trying to manipulate markets or other kinds of stuff like that. So I think that we still have, you know, a ways to go until we figure all this stuff out, because this is a new science and we're kind of learning as we go along. But I think that with the, you know, right now we're kind of facing this deadline of, you know, whether there's going to be these other forks that are incoming pretty soon. You know, I think, and I don't think that 2x is going to be the last one. You know, there could be more that people just start throwing out there. So for now, you know, I think we have to kind of be realistic with our goals. Obviously, we cannot solve all the problems immediately, but we can definitely help users, you know, that really want to do this, to do it safely, and to be able to have full control over the process. So any user that does want that is able to do that. It is going to probably require them to do a few more maneuvers than they're used to doing. Eventually, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Users shouldn't have to care about any of that stuff at all. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a process that's going to take a while to fully build out this whole vision.
Hey, Eric, you know, I just want to say thanks, you know, for coming on. And I understand, you know, you are still figuring out the under the hood mechanics of all this. And, you know, I just like, I've been watching it as it's progressed, and I've sort of seen, you know, like, you know, we need animators to come in and sort of explain the process, and we need some more people who might sort of help. And I love the way that, you know, these situations pop up and we all come together as a community to try and solve this problem. And, you know, I just, I hope more people could see this. And like, I was going to ask, like, are you seeing a big influx of some people when you put out those requests for coders? Like, are some people coming up to you from other wallets saying like, hey, we'd like to implement this, or we'd like to work on this with you, and see if they
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the response has been amazing. Most of the people that I've talked to have been very, very excited about participating in this, and I think that you know, for the most part, you know, most of the application developers, most of the protocol developers, practically all the, you know, most of the wallet developers are very enthused by making all this kind of stuff easier for people, because it's less, you know, headaches for them, less support tickets for them, easier for their users to get what they want, right? Their products are better, etc. Like, there's no downside for them to have all this stuff, right? Really. And also, if you happen to have have, you know, a sense for the markets, and, you know, really feel that a particular coin is going to do well or isn't going to do well, you can bet on that too. So, you know, you can also make money on speculation if that's what your game is. And some people are really excited about that possibility as well.
Yeah, it's certainly something where I've seen a lot of, like, as soon as the mention of the idea of like sort of automatically splitting these things to where it's not a headache for the user, it's like the demand, like immediately when the idea came up, and then all of a sudden we see the groups forming and like people working together. It's like when people ask like, what is core? It's like, that's the community moving towards trying to fix a problem. Like, they're actually, you know, they see a problem and they're coming together to fix it. I love it, man. It's great. Great
Yeah, it's
work.
like an immune response. I kind of compare it to, you know, like our body's immune response. It's like these problems that the network kind of, you know, faces, and we're all kind of like, you know, white blood cells, and we're just all trying to kind of figure out how to you know, work around these kinds of obstacles, and making the system stronger in the process. It's like a vaccination process. We haven't even seen the worst of attacks yet. I think that the network is worth a lot now, but it's going to be, you know, assuming that it is successful, it's going to be probably worth a hell of a lot more than it's worth right now. It becomes a huge target, right? And we're talking about people that have much more power than the people that might want to try to attack it right now, that are really going to try to use everything they've got to attack this. So better learn the lessons now.
But Bitcoin has exhibited a lot of anti-fragile properties. I mean, who would have imagined that we'd be at $7,000 in spite of 3 attempts to fork the chain? Right, so it actually grows from its failure, like a good, robust market should.
Exactly, until it doesn't. But so far it has.
Right.
So let's just keep hoping that it keeps growing and keeps doing well.
Sorry, Monkey, you go ahead.
But I mean, to kind of just like round this off a little bit, like it doesn't seem like there's any lack of like the primitive building blocks to actually accomplish this splitting right now. The issue is kind of just combining them in the most optimal way with like a user interface that doesn't kind of overload people in the space who aren't too technical.
Well, I mean, different wallets are going to have different capabilities. You know, like more sophisticated wallets tend to have a more secure signing environment, for instance. So if you want to have an interactive signing protocol, you don't want to have some external signer where you have to export private keys and stuff like that, right? So you're going to have to probably use some procedure there that's different than someone who might be using, like, you know, some Android wallet, and they don't really care that much about this and only have a few milli Bitcoins, right? And just want to get their 20% extra or whatever, right? We're talking very different use cases. So I mean, in that case, they could be much simpler. But you do sacrifice privacy, you do sacrifice some security, but maybe you don't care. Maybe it's, you know, it's worth the trade-off, right? So I think that there's a very wide range of users of Bitcoin. I mean, I think that there's, you know, there's people that are, you know, that are hodlers that have, you know, keeps their stuff in cold storage, multi-sig, like hardware wallets everywhere, like just, you know, they don't touch that stuff for like years, right? And then there's people that just, you know, have a few million Bitcoins on their phone, and that's all they have, right? So, and then people that use, you know, online, you know, web wallets and stuff like that. There's a very wide range of people that use Bitcoin. I think what's important though is that at least the economically significant aspects of the, you know, the space are able to make use of the opportunities. And I think right now, for instance, like, you know, speculators and definitely people that you know, are businesses in the industry that provide different services. There are lots of opportunities that can present themselves when there are these situations, right? And just being able to more freely move stuff around, you know, having markets that are harder to arbitrarily, you know, impose barriers on, makes it so that you know, the markets tend to, like, you know, resolve these issues a little bit more smoothly. I think, you know, I think that it makes it so that it encourages better behavior and it discourages bad behavior.
Yeah, so it kind of removes like barriers to actually like arrive at a proper price discovery. So to help make that more accurate as opposed to
makes it harder to manipulate the markets. Exactly, you get a much more accurate, much faster price discovery, and you know, it's just like the hive mind, you know, like the wisdom of the crowd in a sense, like really like working, you know, it's like, you know, invisible hand economics, and you know, I think that's the beauty of it, because in the end, the only thing that secures Bitcoin is the fact that it's more expensive to attack than what you could get out of attacking it. Really, I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's just an incentive model, and so the markets are just part of that. It's just, you know, if the markets cannot protect Bitcoin, then obviously something already failed. So I'm really optimistic that this might be the solution, rather than, you know, having to have these kinds of protracted like arguments online and social media battles, which, you know, people just argue all the time and nothing ever gets resolved. And, you know, this is a way that you can actually resolve the issue and have some kind of finality. And it's like, you have a price, and that's what happened. And, you know, the economy moves that way because that's what people are incentivized to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, does anybody else here have any more questions? I'm kind of, you know, plumb out, except to dive more into the technical aspect of things.
Did you want to go into the technical aspect of things? I mean, this kind of reminds me, from a user experience point of view, of my Ether wallet, where, you know, you can put in your ledger and you can put in your key, and then it will just tell you all the balances, all the different shitty ICO coins you've got at a particular address, and it will just list them for you without the user really having to input anything. My Ether wallet just kind of categorizes it. That sort of reminds me, you know, of what you're trying to do here, I think, from a user experience point of view. So I just put in my private key. Another way that this could work is that you could go to an exchange. You could simply enter in your private key, whether it's BIP32, is it an HD wallet, or whether it's another form of maybe a compressed private key, and they will sweep the funds for you. That's another option. And then you simply give them a destination address for your original tokens, and then they will sweep and automatically sell the ones that you don't want. So something like that.
Sure, absolutely. And all these techniques, I think, are valid, and for different use cases, I think that they might be optimal for, you know, given the circumstances. So I encourage all these different approaches. I think that they should all be researched, and I think that we'll be seeing, you know, we're just trying to make it as easy as possible for all different kinds of users. So yeah, I agree with all those techniques. I think should be done.
Cool. Charlene has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Denny.
Yeah, so one of the news items for today is that Trezor Wallet made a statement saying that their hardware wallet is going to support, they're going to call it V2X. And one of the things that they're apparently working on is a splitting tool, or an ability to split the coins within their wallet. Have they reached out to you at all to collaborate on that? Because they said they're going to come up with a guide soon, but they haven't included it in the post. They just said coming soon.
Right. Yes. No. Yeah. I have talked to the Trezor guys, and I think that you know, we do see eye to eye on a lot of this stuff. I think that right now it's just you know, they probably are going to want to put together a set of instructions that are particular to their product and make it easy for their users to be able to really control what they do, because that's just the kind of users that they have. I mean, Trezor users tend to be more security conscious than people that use Android wallets, right? That's just the way it is. So they're targeting a market which really does care about this stuff and considers it very important. So they're probably going to want more manual steps along the way for now, because everything hasn't been automated yet. And so what we want to do is help them promote whatever information that can help people use Trezor better, and also for other wallet authors, other wallet companies, inviting them to be able to link to the resources from our site, and to be able to make it easy for people that own these devices to easily do whatever they can with it. And then, I mean, obviously later on, like, the idea would be to have a tighter integration. But I think that for the first round, given that we only have a couple of weeks, it's kind of hard to push something out that's really secure and that's really been tested well and everything. So probably a few manual steps are not a bad idea for someone that really cares about security.
Yeah, I'm one of those Trezor users, and I'm not gonna send my small amount of funds anywhere unless it's something sort of easy and I know what I'm doing step by step. And that's why I feel like what you're doing here is, like, it's really important. I think it's going to be used a lot. And I'm sure once we get this whole thing running the way it's running smooth, we'll start seeing more people linking and saying, like, well, here's how you split your coins. It's an easy route. And I appreciate everything you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys had me on. I'm gonna have to go pretty soon, but thanks for the chat. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and hopefully we'll be able to continue this story soon.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure, Eric. It's always nice having actual people building things on here, not just us brain farting opinions.
All right, take care, guys.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers. Thank you.
Later. Take care. Alrighty then.
Can I just talk a little bit about the economics? It would have actually been nice to go into some of the economics with Eric, but nevertheless.
No, Chris, you're supposed to be in the basement doing proof of work by hand.
I know.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter how good your blockchain is if you get the economics wrong.
Right, because first of all, disclaimer, I work for Bitfinex Exchange, and I also came up with the contract terms for the chain split tokens for the SegWit2x coins, and also for the Bitcoin Gold ones recently. There were a modification of pre-existing terms that were used prior for Bcash, or for Bitcoin Cash. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend anyone calling it Bcash. Now, let's just talk about the economics of this. So the reason why these chain split tokens were necessary for an exchange like Bitfinex, and perhaps in the future someone like Kraken as well, is because there is a lending market and margin trading, as well as spot trading. So this is different to exchanges such as BitMEX that only do derivatives. So when you're trading on BitMEX, you're basically trading contracts. You're not really exchanging. You're not depositing fiat and getting off the Bitcoins, or vice versa. You're not going with Bitcoins and taking off Ethereum. Whereas with Kraken and Bitfinex, and maybe some other exchanges too, where you have a mixture of margin trading and spot trading, that means people just coming in, buying the coins and taking them off, or people just buying low and selling high, as opposed to margin traders who are both borrowing dollars in order to buy Bitcoins to go long, and people that are borrowing Bitcoins to sell them for dollars and then buy them back, hopefully lower. That's their intention. The problem with these types of exchanges that have the mixed model is that, as best you can, when you have a customer, think of the etymology of the word customer, custom, custody. Okay, it shares the same etymological root. The goal really for the exchange owner is to give the user, the customer, an experience that most closely mimics what it would be like if they held the private key themselves. Obviously, they don't. Obviously, when you send your Bitcoins into an exchange, you actually surrender that control over to the exchange. That exchange is then holding your coins in trust on a private key that they control. The problem with those lending markets and the ability to go long and short is it creates an imbalance when the fork event happens. When such and such person comes along and says, right, at this block height, we're going to split off and we're going to get a bunch of miners mining on this chain. What happens is if you have a whole bunch of people that have lent money out and those people have sold those Bitcoins to go in a margin position and a whole bunch of spot traders came in, bought them and took them off the exchange, you now have an imbalance. If you have too many people shorting, you end up with not enough, free tokens, Segwit 2x coins in the upcoming case, to give to all your customers. If you have too many people going margin long, you actually have a good problem because now you have more than enough tokens to give away. I don't want it to get this overly complex. Just to say that what it's done is created this perverse incentive structure now where customers want to make more and more deposits on exchanges like Bitfinex because it's the quickest way they can get their redemption on the tokens because they don't have to worry about splitting the coins. Bitfinex or Kraken will do it for them. And plus they think, well, I can just game this as well because I can go on an exchange like Finex, I can deposit the coins, they'll do all the splitting for me, but hell, I'll just go margin long on this thing and get free money. The problem with Bitcoin Gold was a bunch of people did do that. And I was in the whale pool chat and I was, 100 odd people in there. And Coin Runner was in there as well. And moments leading up to the split, people were saying, well, Chris, when's Paolo, the developer of Bitfinex, when's he actually going to split it? Is it at the beginning of the block? Is it at the end of the block? Because they all had margin positions open. They were playing this game of trying to get as many free tokens as they could. And the dump, I mean, it was horrendous. Like, the market dumped immediately after people realized that the snapshot had happened, the block height had been reached, because clearly they were trying to game it. And I wanted to bring up this point about the fact that created for these exchanges that are basically being used as chain splitting services and people depositing on there, and that being a little bit, I would argue, a bit reckless if people are putting their paper wallets and they're depositing them on an exchange and then margin longing and playing these kinds of games. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I see these chain split utility being, I don't know, really helpful, because there seems to be a lot of game theory in this whenever these tokens happen, as far as like when was the snapshot, when's the airdrop, and this little bit of variable in time, like when can, like how long can we take advantage of this situation and where's the advantage to be taken. And I just feel like, yeah, it'd be great if we had one of these one size fits all tools for all these forks, to where it's just like the gaming questions is like what the parameters are going to be and all that really be narrowed down, because it's like, yeah, forks coming, but the utility's already there. We know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, these things like distort the incentives like for the entire ecosystem. I mean, not just when it's coming to like the exchanges and people trying to trade it, but like even the miner incentives. Like, look, since Bcash forked off, how often we have blocks slowing down and miners migrating over whenever it's more profitable relatively. And I mean, like the more of these things that happen, period, in like all aspects of the ecosystem, like the incentives are going to kind of get thrown out of whack or distorted.
You can see it right here. Here is the longs versus shorts ratio on Bitfinex. And you can see these wild swings at the beginning. These are all the longs. This is the price, this middle line here that's going up. And you can see to the left of my cursor, it says BTC price. And the green graph is all the people that are margin long. And margin long means you're borrowing US dollars from the lending market in order to buy Bitcoins. Even if you own dollars yourself, you still have to borrow them. You then buy Bitcoins off the market and you are then in a position. And the position will have a profit and loss, and it will either, if the price goes against you, it will show a negative balance. If the price goes up, it will show a positive balance. And then the red bar down here, this graph, these are all the shorts. And what we've been seeing in the last few months since these forks have begun is, look at this, a huge number of unprecedented levels of people going margin short or margin long in the case of Bitcoin Gold up here, And now what we're seeing at the moment is this compression, all these longs closing as we were reaching all-time highs in anticipation of what is now at the moment looks like a bit of a consolidation. We're dropping in price right now. And these shorts just are not closing. You know, they are expecting something. So it creates these distortions in the marketplace that I think are kind of aberrant. They're not really natural. I mean, of course, they're natural because people are doing them. But I feel like they create this kind of aberration. And I feel like it creates an incentive too much for people that want to create market distorting events to just say, right, we're going to do a PR campaign, we're going to fork the network, you're going to get these free magic tokens, there's going to be a nice website, a nice Twitter account. And like with B Gold, I mean, it's just a joke. They still haven't launched. And the developer messaged me before I came on air. He said it's going to be ready on the 12th of November or something like that. I don't even think that's public information, by the way. So it's
right,
exclusively on Block Digest.
If everything stays according to plan, right?
Yeah, exactly. And who knows if that's going to get pushed back. But the fact that they can't get
Bitcoin gold longs, get it on now, guys. You heard the signal. You heard the signal here. Now,
I'm not exactly sure what's going on real quick, Theo, but that screen share wasn't showing up on the stream, Chris. I think we're just seeing it in the Hangouts only.
Oh, okay.
Well, I see long and shorts. I think that's what's being shared.
Well, can you click on my screen? Can you just click on my screen quickly?
So well, I tried presenting it from there, and all it did was show the channel logo.
Okay, all right, no worries.
Bear with us, channel. Let's see.
Block Digest presented Block Digest to everyone, and that is the sharing one is longs versus shorts. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live on air.
All right.
Yeah,
well, no worries.
This has to do with both of us being on the same account.
It's okay. You can look it up later, everyone in the audience, and check it out. There'll probably be links somewhere.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, we can.
Whatever you were presenting, I noticed that you're not following Mike in Space on Twitter, and whoever's account was the Twitter account showing, you're going to have to go back. Twitter is telling you should follow Mike in Space. And, you know, I mean, since he was nominated in the CoinDesk influential people, you should definitely follow him.
Yeah, I got some help from Mike with that image today.
Hey, see? He's even contributing to that. But we got to go on to the next topic, which is anyone?
First, I can finally say that, hey, everybody, this is the picture that Chris was talking about. So I guess this, since I logged in first, it overrides screen shares.
Okay. So you can now see my screen. Okay, great. So let's go back to what I was talking about. So here's the market, and here's the green bar, and these are the longs, and this middle bar is the price, and this red bar is all the shorts. And as you can see, since we've started forking this year, this is June through to now, up on the right, you can see all this distortion. You can see all these people playing games, going long, thinking they're getting free tokens, and then people shorting it because they think it's going to crash. And yeah, so shenanigans. That was the graph I was trying to show. You can find it at bfxdata.com and follow the links at the top from there.
Alrighty, you want to take us into the next thing and we'll see how the screen share works?
Yeah, it should be working. So final thoughts before the 2x fork by Whale Panda.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is pretty much a nice pep rally speech for everybody. It's kind of grounding everything in reality here. Like every person involved in pushing this at this point essentially has some kind of conflict of interest. Like Garzik has done this metronome thing, which is to solve the drama problem that he himself has helped create. Roger Ver and Jihan have forked off to Bcash. And I mean, even before the New York agreement, Brian Armstrong from Coinbase has been like talking up Ethereum as superior than Bitcoin. I mean, this was part of the entire reason that it was initially listed at Coinbase. And like all of these players, like they have a very direct financial incentive to cause disruption to Bitcoin in a way that pushes people off to other alternatives that they have a direct means to profit through. And now then again, like Chris is highlighting here, this ridiculous notion that the accumulated difficulty in itself defines Bitcoin. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me as long as I continue running my node. And every statistic that we can look at to try to quantify nodes in general beyond the one you're running yourself, Bitcoin Core is in the clear majority. I mean, this is looking at publicly listening nodes. If you exclude Amazon Web Service nodes or things running on other VPSs, this includes the data from Luke Jr.'s seed node, which is actually something that's going to get a connection from every node that bootstraps when it first comes on the network. It's like core nodes are in the clear majority. And unless these are all fake Sybil nodes that have been slowly spun up over a time span of years and paid for by some mysterious conspiracy's budget, like these are people running Bitcoin Core. And the chain they will continue to follow is the one that abides by those rules, regardless of the height or cumulative weight of any other chain. And I mean, like, pretty much the gist of his post beyond that is, like, even if blocks do slow down, even if miners do piss away money mining another chain for a while, that doesn't really matter unless you are one of the few people in a situation where you regularly spend Bitcoin. For a hodler, it doesn't matter. Like, blocks coming in slower in no way affects my ability or your ability to leave your coin sitting in cold storage. If you're a trader, Bitcoin in no way slowing down affects anything except your ability to arbitrage. Anything that you have on an exchange is on an exchange. You can trade with it now. You can move in and out of Bitcoin to fiat or any other cryptocurrency available on the exchange you use. That this isn't really a cataclysmic shutdown of most people's ability to use Bitcoin in the manner that most people use it. And like at the end of the day, like Whale Panda says, like if they continue a disruptive distribution of hash power for the next month, I don't care. I'm not just going to switch over to 2x because they cause irritation for me. Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin's ability to store my value is not affected by that.
Yeah, you're right. I really thought this was a strong statement from Whale Panda. I really liked, everything said in it. It's just one of those things where at this point, it's like we kind of feel like it's a no duh, like this is why we're so against this movement and everything. But if it needs restating, I mean, like he stated it here, it's like this is clearly an attack. This isn't an upgrade. And yeah, I mean, those 96% core nodes are not AWS nodes. Like, it's definitely, good to see that, the important people in the space are on this side where, logic stands.
I really felt like they dropped the ball at 2x on this because they should have started much earlier trying to build those nodes up. They should have known that they were going to have a deficit, because how are they going to get node propagation properly? Oh yeah, there was actually a tweet by Kyle Torpy that Charlene is just sending me here. Let me pull it up on the screen. Hopefully that's working for you now. And yeah, the cost of supporting the B2X fork, how to lose 100 million in 10 days. So I just think that they didn't plan this properly. I think, did they really think that they were just going to be able to pull this off without getting the node count up? There just aren't enough SegWit2x nodes to propagate their transactions and their blocks across the network.
I mean, even if there were, I mean, that's, unless those nodes are actually processing economic activity, that's completely irrelevant. A millionaire could spin up 10,000 nodes of whatever client version they want, like at the snap of a finger on a VPS provider. That doesn't mean anything unless they are actually validating real economic activity. It's just an attempt to distort social signaling in a way that you can attempt to portray as objective. Like, I mean, like people like to talk shit about like all the Twitter polls and these meetup letters, but that's a lot more objective from my point of view to actually reach out to other human beings and ascertain their opinions directly. Like, well, especially in the case of meetups.
Those are the very users that the 2x people claim to be representing. that as businesses, they say that people want this, but they haven't solicited me. They haven't said to me, like, hey, do you want to run a node? Because we're setting up this new version of Bitcoin and we think it's better and it's an upgrade to core. They haven't done any of that engagement.
Well, yeah, I mean, like to quasi like dox myself here. Like I'm from Chicago. Like Bitcoin mom, like everybody should know her on Twitter, is one of the runners of the biggest Chicago meetup. And the last she commented on the matter, she has not talked to a single person that attends their meetup, which is more than 1,000 people, that supports 2x. Not a single person. And that's not something you can civil. Those are real people interacting with each other in real space.
Well, what was the cost of paying all those people to say they don't support 2x? 100 million? It would be a lot cheaper than 100 million, wouldn't it?
That's a third.
How many influencers? How many influencers can I buy on social media to shill whatever I want to shill for $100 million? I could do pretty good, I think. What do you guys think?
I don't know, but I've got a really fancy leather case for my Trezor wallet that I want to sell everyone.
Just give me a cool hat. I'll do anything for a cool hat.
I want swag.
Yeah, well, we want swag, right? So, well, you know, no 2x has cooler swag. There's activist stickers. Maybe there's hats. And where is
brigading, virtue signaling, people just plebbling along, blindly following,
and the 2x
echo chamber of like they're not really understanding the issues. They're just like in it for the cause. They're driven by a cause.
And the 2x, movement is just too conservative. Suit and tie, rich startups, suburban
thought leaders.
It's just total boring.
Fubar Gorch is saying thought leaders, not influencers. Get with the times, Theo. You got to be a thought leader and a guru. You got to tell people the future.
Oh, yeah.
A guru.
I lead my thoughts around. They don't lead me.
Yeah. Well, this is how we scale. This is the block size debate of social media. How do we scale Bitcoin? We can't have all these people thinking for themselves independently. That'll just lead to they're too stupid for that anyway. Everyone's just stupid, aren't they? And they all need just leading, don't they? And I'm the person to do it.
Exactly. And Twitter has censorship. So why should anyone having a conversation about this on Twitter is supporting censorship then? And they are against enemies of Bitcoin, of course. We've all learned that from the early scaling wars that we've survived, that all censorship on social media, anyone deleting any kind of any post or anything on any kind of website that has social interaction must be an enemy of Bitcoin. We've come to learn. So that now the question is, where is that train coming from, and where is it trying to go? Does anyone know?
Paradise. I mean, it's going to paradise. Just hop on board the train. I mean, don't you trust the train conductor, Theo?
Is it like 99
I don't see the train
paradise,
conductor.
or what is it?
I don't see the train conductor. If I'm not mistaken,
it's Barry. There he is. He's in the background. It's Barry. Barry.
The first time. Okay, that's hard. Actually, but that is it's an interesting thing. Just a breaking news, unconfirmed breaking news, somewhat subjective, is the guy with the I think this is the guy from BitGo. Is that correct in the front?
Yeah,
Belshi, and apparently his Twitter is hacked. So if anyone gets weird direct messages from Belshi saying something like, "Guys, I've been blocked by Gemini. Can you loan me some Bitcoin?" Then, just don't believe the hype. Okay, so
you're breaking
confirm it with someone else at BitGo.
That's not what the troll army should be doing. They should be letting people get fooled to continue malevolently manipulating public opinion against Mike Belshi.
Exactly. You have slipped up, Shinobi. We figured you out. Because what's going on actually is that the No2X brigadists have hired Twitter hackers in order to give the SegWit 2X people a bad name, that they can't even keep their Twitter secure. And it must be an inside job by that. And you've slipped up, Shinobi. We've caught you now.
What can I say? Hackers like hats.
You know that.
Yeah,
well, they both start with H.
All I really want is some home insurance from AXA, and then I'll just say whatever they want me to say. They just give me some free home insurance.
Well,
that's what I'm after. I'm
That's
quite cheap.
definitely
I'm a cheap thought leader, Theo. I don't ask for much.
Right.
I don't need.
Okay, so
I don't need a new fitted kitchen paid for with rare pepes. I just need some home insurance.
Well, no, you can buy whatever you want with your rare pepes, with your airdrops, with your whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to. What is it called? What's the exchange on Ether, Bitfinex or something? The altcoin exchange. Ethinex. Yeah, whatever you trade on Ethinex, you can buy kitchens with, or whatever you want to buy. That's fine. Okay, what was Whale Panda's fourth point again? Can you flip back really quick? If we have that handy. Yeah, this was never about scaling. So that's the whole thing. You see, I agree. I mean, of course, it has the name, and the discussion started there at some point. But it's just about who gets to decide power, who is the head of the train, so on and so forth. I agree with that. The point 4 on his Medium blog the most. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about Whale Panda's last words on. I have a feeling we can do the over/under or the odds for if that is his really last post about SegWit 2X, but I doubt it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I doubt it is too. It's like he's going on vacation, but you know how it is. It's hard to leave that Twitter alone.
Yeah, someone needs to start selling a pimped out lead box to put your phone in so that you can have a vacation from Bitcoin, basically. Maybe with a cool logo on it. Okay, we have someone else. That sounds like an ICO, Shinobi. A visitor that's come into the chat here.
That is Aknix from the Bitcoin bus. Hey, Aknix, you there? Come in, Aknix.
Hey, okay.
I think he's probably going to spend his time trolling in the chat.
All right. You can do that. Okay, are we ready for the next? Are we ready for the next one? All right. What are the thoughts on Graphene discussed at the Bitcoin Scaling Conference, the Scaling Bitcoin Conference, I should say?
Okay, so this, I've seen this posted all over Reddit as like some awesome solution, and just the narrative being pushed everywhere that I hope Core doesn't refuse to implement this because of it wasn't invented here-itis. Well, I kind of want to break down why this is nowhere near as monumental of an improvement as it's claimed. Effectively, what the Graphene protocol for relaying blocks claims to do is use a combination of a Bloom filter and an IBLT, an invertible Bloom lookup table. And effectively what each of these things are is a Bloom filter is an arbitrary bit array in which you kind of hash each element of a set, and that maps to specific bits, which you will set from 0 to 1. And this way it allows you to actually take an individual element and check that it's part of the set. But the nature of how this works is there is an error rate where you will get a false positive proportional to the size of this Bloom filter. And that kind of adds a lot of overhead the more accurate you want to be. And the claimed improvement here is to use an IBLT, which is effectively, instead of like a Bloom filter proving that something is part of a set with a rate of false positives. It's an ability to kind of zero out the differences between two sets. And so the Bloom filter is effectively used to give a node an ability to check everything in their mempool and see if it's part of a block. And the IBLT is a way to kind of check the differences between what is in that Bloom filter or the block and against the mempool. So you can kind of compare what is not part of one or the other against the other. And the key thing, which actually Roast Beef kind of pointed out in the question and answer sections, is the entire design for Graphene does not take into account the order of things in that block. And this is a problem for two reasons. One, with the case of a child pays for parent transaction, like that's effectively a way for people to up the fee on something that was sent to them to actually get it confirmed faster. And this, without sending the actual ordering of what's in a block, could pretty much break child pays for parent. And the reason it would do so is because to not send like data to allow you to have the ordering that things are composed in, like there would have to be some kind of standard unchanging way to order things that could not take into account child pays for parent. So in order to like get that kind of efficiency, it breaks something that users actually use a lot in order to get stuck transactions confirmed. And the biggest reason this is a problem is because the biggest savings you would get with this protocol is effectively when you have a really big mempool. So this is most useful when users are most likely to need to use child pays for parent. And it's also a problem because you have to have that ordering to be able to compute the Merkle root. Because effectively, like the Merkle tree is everything that is a part of this at the bottom hashed together in pairs, and then those pairs hash together until you get to the very top of the tree, the Merkle root. And you have to have everything in the exact right order to get that same Merkle root to actually be able to validate something. So effectively, the claim that they have 1/10 of the cost of compact blocks is completely fallacious because it has that faulty assumption that you don't have to worry about the order of things. And so like the way that this is kind of built up is like, ooh, a monumental improvement that didn't come from core. It's frankly bullshit because the assumption that this entire proposal is based on is wrong. And they actually didn't run any kind of numbers or tests taking into account that information. Like at the end of the presentation, he simply made an offhand comment that it would still be like 50% of the load that compact blocks would. And this really bothers me. And I think this week, hopefully, we're going to kind of touch on small sections of the Scaling Bitcoin conference, like each day, and not try to kind of cram it all into one episode. But like this is effectively a big problem for the space because this Scaling Bitcoin conference, it's become a landmark thing in the ecosystem. It's a brand that has built its own reputation where people just kind of assume a higher level of legitimacy or are less skeptical of things here just because they're associated with this brand. And I think this is a very bad way to look at things because, like, as I just broke down, this proposal makes a claim that it uses 1/10 of the resources that compact blocks does, but it makes a whole bunch of incompatible assumptions with how Bitcoin works to make that claim and never actually tested it in a way that takes into account the data that they did not use in this model that has to be taken into account for this to work on the Bitcoin network. And so, like, as a community, I think, like, even with things like Scaling Bitcoin, where we have this brand legitimacy, this notion that just because something is there, it's worthwhile or it's valuable, we need to remain highly skeptical of things because this is point blank a social attack vector. Like this is going to be something that is going to attract malevolent people or careless people or people who just aren't invested in the same way in the success of this network that all of us are. And this, to be a little over dramatic, we have to stay vigilant and not just accept things from platforms like this because we think that this platform is just inherently legitimate.
Yeah, I didn't watch that much of the Scaling Bitcoin this weekend. Just I was out mountain biking, but I'm gonna catch up on it. And yeah, like it definitely sounds like it's always been, like you're saying, kind of a prestigious event, and then it seems like they've been throwing more and more things in there where it's all about making sure everybody gets the right people up there in politics and not necessarily about the technical approach of things. So yeah, it's definitely good to stay vigilant about all this information as it's coming out.
Didn't Gavin Andresen first propose inversible Bloom lookup filters?
Yes, but it was an independent application of that, not the kind of hybrid with a regular Bloom filter that this is talking about in Graphene.
Okay.
But he was actually a part of this specific proposal as well. He just he had no part in presenting it.
All right. Okay. What's up next? E-Residence. This will be Estonia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they retracting all those cards? Is this right? Oh, hang on. Smart ID. Just show, whose story is this? Republic of Estonia. Yes, that's right. And they're retracting the ID cards that were faulty because of the vulnerability that was found earlier last month.
Excuse me. Yeah, it looks like 760,000 of those resident certificates from this e-residency are, it's like they had this card they were issuing from October 2014 to October 2017, and 760,000 of the certificates were at risk and compromised, and sensitive data was released to where basically all those identities are at risk, and so they're just shutting them down and telling people to re-sign up on this under this new certificate that they have until March of 2018. They can sign up, and it's just it looks like, I'm not quite sure what certificate they're asking people to sign up to that's going to be so much more secure than what this was, but it looks like they're trying to do this all in good faith and doing it like open source, and it just it doesn't look like, I don't know, I don't see where the answer is to any of this. It just says that, like, you need to re-sign up by March 2018, and hopefully your information will be more secure at that point with this new certificate. But as far as like the actual tech behind that and what makes it more secure, I didn't read anything about this. It sounds like their customer information was compromised, and then they said, well, here, everybody go sign up here, and I didn't see anything about how it's going to fix the problem.
This is a really good example of bad public key infrastructure, of just using a meme and like jumping on a bandwagon of like, oh, look, we're using this fancy new tech, aren't we innovative? But actually not really thinking about it. Like, there should be a master key, and there should be sub keys, and there should be a way for you to revoke those keys. It should be graceful. It shouldn't be this kind of messy ad hoc, oh, look, there's something we didn't realize, and now we've got to get everyone to hand their ID cards back in. I guess for now, they're not, the public key infrastructure doesn't really mean anything. They're essentially saying that obviously you can assert your rights as a citizen in the meantime, just because your public key isn't working, but we'll just fall back to paper records. We'll just fall back on all the legacy system that we used to use. Well, what's the point of having public key infrastructure, Janine?
Yeah, and the other frustrating thing about this is that you're back, because the e-residency cards are tied to everything, including your banking and probably your healthcare as well. Anything, any service that you get from the government is also tied to this. So anytime anything goes wrong with these ID cards, you're back to another situation, which we already have, where actually it's worse, because if you lose your passport, you can still use generally you can still use your banking stuff as long as that hasn't been compromised. With this e-residency thing, you can't actually even use your banking, because that was one of the things they said, is that this weekend or whenever they're making this fix where they invalidate the older cards, you won't be able to get into your bank account. And it's like, that's ridiculous. That's exactly why I got into Bitcoin, is because I don't want that kind of restriction on my ability to give money to people when I need it. And so this is, in some ways, this is actually worse than a traditional ID system.
Yeah, it's really ad hoc. I don't like it. There's no sort of set procedure. They didn't have a disaster recovery plan. They do obviously make clear that nobody was actually compromised during this vulnerability, but nevertheless, it's just really poor form, you know.
Yeah, especially like the, you know, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like there's a real answer to it. They say, well, you know, we've got this new certificate, just sign up here, and that problem's not going to happen again, which, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Well, let's hope they thought it's true. It wasn't a coding error, and they do point out it wasn't actually a problem with the ID card alone. It was a problem with the vulnerability of an algorithm that was used. I believe it was outside of their control. But nevertheless, the system just, in my opinion, just wasn't architected correctly.
But it's like all these systems are built on this open construct where we currently work, where it's like all this information is pretty easily hackable.
Okay, well, who did they hire to do this? So whatever. So the last time we had this story, I said, whoever got this contract, good for them. I hope they got paid. So they probably, the people, whoever, you know, I assume it wasn't, you know, government employees that did it. I'm just taking that guess. I don't, them saying exactly, but I'm assuming it was contractors, and they just went too lean. You know, they maybe had too many interns, or they just didn't know, you know, didn't think of some basic things. And maybe they're getting paid again to fix it. I don't know. That would be funny. Or, I mean, I guess it sounds like you could hire someone else to come fix it. Or maybe they have to have a whole nother government department just for this project. Could be, you know, maybe because if they're really going forward with this with a, you know, bigger scale plan for more years, then, you know, that can happen. But, you know, you just fork it, right? E-Residence to X. There you go. Just a new certificate.
Yeah, but right
same
now,
ID, new certificate.
A lot of production, a lot of code is being driven on the basis of memes and memetics, right? It's just like, this is a cool technology. Everyone's talking about it. Hey, 10x developer, you cost like $250,000 a year for us to hire you.
All your fault.
Go work on this new blockchain thing. And the developer's like, why do we need this? Can't we just make a DHT like any sane developer? And, you know, have a get and a put and just do this properly. No, it has to be on a blockchain. There has to be a token attached to it. Not that that's what Estonia did. They didn't actually. They infrastructured a public key, you know, system. I just think it was poorly architected. I just feel like it was done for PR purposes rather than actually think. When I met them in London, and I did meet the minister there and all the high level people, you know, we were talking about it. But of course, you know, the people that get these contracts and these jobs are often people that are just close to those that make the decisions and do the procurement, right? That's just how it goes. You went to uni with a guy, or some guy's, you know, got a connection and he gets the contract, and they're not really interested in talking to hackers other than for the purposes of a hackathon, which might be really good for PR, but not really in terms of like, okay, what's a sensible way of building this? Because this looks good. This is great imagery. It's almost like all the development was based around getting imagery like this out. Media. This is content. This is content that they want to push out, content that shows that Estonia is no longer part of the Soviet Union. We're a category distinction. We are clearly very different to Rodina, the motherland, Russia, right? We are part of the EU. We're hipster. We got the alfresco vibe. We got lattes. We got you know, that whole. I've seen it. It's on the news.
Hilarious. That's so
every
good.
Time the news, like the BBC.
Yeah, we have Chromebooks and Macs.
We have Chromebooks. Yes. We've got it all. We've got like those little Labradoodle things, you know, walking down the street.
You know, that's what Estonia wants to attract. They want to attract tech startups, you know, that whole vibe. And so you're right. You need pictures like that. You know, you need pictures like that. And I mean, you know, speaking about memes, I mean, not digital identification, but I guess you could say blockchain identification is one of the, you know, memes that's been going on there. I don't know how many projects there are with that, and for some reason that meme got started. I don't know how, and then it just continues to reappear all over and over again. You know, there's all kinds of, you know, different attempts at doing this now, whether it's blockchain or open source or I don't know, but hey, that picture looks cool too. That looks.
They're selling.
trendy,
what they're doing
you know?
is they're selling a lifestyle. And
you know what this is?
When I what
it's
is
scrolly ICO page.
Oh, it's scrolly
no ICO,
bumpy bumpy.
but with no ICO. But it's the same idea.
With the nobody knows you're a fridge on the blockchain meme. They're like mutually exclusive memes.
It doesn't matter. It just matters that that looks cool and it's saying the right words. All that other stuff is just dismissed as being a skeptic and, you know, some kind of mean person that lives in their parents' basement or something. You know, this doesn't matter. It just matters cool stuff and, you know, setting a vibe to attract. It's you know, it's a competition between the countries. Now, if you some tax breaks, you know, setting the right vibe, you know, making sure that you don't look like another country with a negative vibe, that is all part of it. It's all part of the marketing of your country to attract people there.
Yeah, I think they
really part of it.
I think they really might ICO there just because, like, you know, really, it's like you're saying, they do have a lot of projects in the space trying to achieve this. Why we don't see like Vinny Lingham or the Tezos couple over there, or, you know, any of the old Factum guys. It's like, yeah, we might one day see this e-Residency ICO token created.
I should also point out this doesn't affect the mobile app. It only affects the digital ID card. And apparently I'm just reading this from another source, SC magazine. They're saying that the mobile ID, which the majority of Estonians use, are typically used as a backup method. So I don't want to overplay, you know, I'm not trying to bash Estonia, but when I met them in London, one of the things that they said quite explicitly was that, you know, they fear possibly a repatriation with Rodina, the motherland, Russia, that is, for those of you who don't know. And therefore they wanted to decentralize their government. They wanted the, you know, the ID and everything to be in this decentralized, in this cryptographic decentralized way, like on a blockchain kind of thing, so that it was transnational. So that if they were ever invaded or they were forced to go into bunkers or flee even the nation state itself, the nation state could still exist existentially, even if it was occupied by a foreign power. And I actually found that notion quite compelling. I do think it's really, really interesting. But when we start, like, at one point I was quite disturbed because one of the guys, I don't know how high up he was in the government there, but he said, imagine if your biometrics were your private key. And I was like, whoa, let me just stop you right there, because there's this book you should read, 1984. Please don't treat it like a manual, but go away and read it. But make sure you get the right takeaway. It's really dangerous, this notion that like your DNA or your iris or something could become your private key is exactly why this is a bad idea. Because if this shit gets hacked, you can't replace your retina. Like, it could be everyone, we're going to have to revoke your retinas. Everyone's going to have their eyes transplanted. You're going to have to have new eyeballs installed.
Yeah. Because we need to get an upgrade.
Yeah.
Your brain is not full. Your brain's blocks are not big enough.
Yeah, your DNA wrecked. You're going to need some gene therapy. We will need to infect you with a virus that will mutate your genes. You may have a few extra fingers and toes at the end of this process. It's not a good idea. They're just tokens. That's all they are. That's all the ID system is. It's a private key that sits on a device, trusted hardware preferably, and you're able to sign messages with it, and the government know it's you because they witnessed at some ceremony or some, you know, whenever you signed up for this thing, there has to be a trusted method for you to register it. But anyway,
what if we put DNA in the decentralized ID?
Yeah. Let's put DNA in the blockchain. Let's put medical records in the blockchain. Let's just put let's just put everything in the blockchain.
But then Achnix, then I gotta worry about like getting cloned if my ID gets stolen and shit. And that's just that takes the identity theft headache to a whole new level.
Oh man, then you could get Sybil. Oh man, that's
Right, yeah, distributed hash table. They're working on something like this a bit for Next right now, actually. They've got an open source project, Hash, I think, and yeah, they're looking up like a DHT system that is used in BitTorrent whenever you download that, obviously, you know, Creative Commons licensed legal stuff that you download off of BitTorrent. When you do that, you're often using something called a DHT, distributed hash table, where you're asking other peers where to find. You're asking for a link. So where can I find, which IP address has Game of Thrones? No, preferably not Game of Thrones, because that's actually illegal. You should definitely go out and buy the DVD in a legitimate manner. But let's say you were downloading some Creative Commons licensed stuff. What you would do is you would petition a peer, and that peer would have a copy of this DHT. It's kind of like a blockchain. It's a distributed collection of hashes that are deterministically listed in an array. And you say, okay, where's the IP address? And they give you the list of IP addresses, and you can go off and source those. And what's beautiful about this system is that you can do things in parallel. So actually, once you get the links to all the pointers for all the blocks that make up your video, you can actually start downloading those blocks asymmetrically. You can download, you know, the beginning of Game of Thrones. You can download the end with the dragons, but you can do it at the same time. And then you can like maybe download the middle, you know. You don't have to do it in order. So that's a DHT, kind of like a blockchain, and would be way more applicable to about 99% of the projects in the space right now. Johnny.
Yeah, speaking of weird things today that I saw people saying should be put on a blockchain, there's apparently a prayer token, and they made a really obnoxious tweet saying that, oh, your grandpa should invest his retirement money in prayer token. At his age, he probably needs a prayer. And I thought, wow, whoever, great marketing. But yeah, apparently now you can pray on a blockchain too. It's now a religion.
All your miracles coming from a blockchain near you.
I swear, if they
poverty away.
I swear if they come up with some kind of origin story for their coin, they're gonna have Ethlehem instead of Bethlehem, because it was an Ethereum token, obviously.
Ethlehem. Let's just let that sink in. Ethlehem. And that's where Vitalik died and rose again. No, wait, he was born in a manger. He was born in a manger, and there were these three dudes that went to find him. They followed a star, and that's how Vitalik was brought into the world, I guess.
No, he's a clone of Putin.
Oh.
I thought he was a wizard.
He is kind of a wizard. Oh, sorry, let me mute my mic.
Y'all got me wanting to do like some Christmas artwork already. I just got to wait for a little bit for that one.
All right. So, have we exhausted this? Have we flogged this horse? Because there are like 100 people watching, and I feel like, you know, we can
pray for them.
We have more stories. We can pray for them. Pay for the 100
I think
people.
we got the fake news and then this real news.
Oh, so this is the real news right here on my screen. Next block.
Indeed.
Global. All right. Go. Okay, Johnny.
Yeah, so we covered this last week. It was about the Tapscott Group's new crypto venture capitalist firm. And it was revealed that in order to get investors, they were passing around an advisor deck that had people's names on there that they had either never spoken to or at least had never agreed to be advisors for their company. And they kept saying, oh, it's just a draft document. We weren't going to use it. But they apparently went through 5. This was version 5 that Forbes saw specifically. So they went through a bunch of versions of this document that had people's names on it that they didn't talk to. I'd find that a little weird. And they were also emailing it to people. And yeah, there's some interesting conversations that some of the advisors had at the Tapscotts when they realized they had been included in this document. And so now the new news is that they have decided that they are going to not list and that they are going to return the money that they have received so far from the investors back to the investors as a result of this report, which is probably highly embarrassing. I saw that coming. I mean, good on them for, realizing that what they did was really sleazy and realizing that this wasn't a good time to be launching a new company, and they should probably take stock of their practices in recruiting advisors.
Yeah, it's just outlandish.
I think it's more he just got caught with his hand in the cookie jar and he's trying to pull it out to try again later.
Maybe Tap Scott didn't read Vitalik's Twitter, because Vitalik said, proof of selfie is a no-go. And, maybe, they thought, hey, we kind of know those guys. Not only do we have selfies, we've hung out with them. I would just put them on as advisors. And they're not going to say no. I mean, it's Tap Scott. Come on.
Well,
and then,
Well, the funny part is that they didn't even try to go for advertising Vitalik as an advisor. They went for his dad instead. It wasn't actually Vitalik. It was Mr. Buterin Sr., which I find hilarious.
Well, yeah, they're the more mature investment choice, clearly.
All right.
Let's just remember that just to remind everyone, Tap Scott was on the first list of CoinDesk's nominations for most influential blockchain or whatever kind of person.
Oh, well, he's definitely, he's influential. He's, advertising a bunch of other influential people that don't actually want to have anything to do with him. So I guess that makes him pretty influential. And he almost sold a company. He almost got hundreds of millions of dollars of investment money on that basis.
Was it his company?
Yeah, this venture capitalist firm.
Oh.
But yeah, I feel kind of worried for Lauren Shin, because I feel like, she wrote this story and it was, very widely shared. So I hope she doesn't get into any trouble from them, because I wouldn't put that past people in this space, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. But oh my God, what's that? Is that fake news? I think I see fake news, guys.
So fake.
No, not in this space.
What's fake about it?
Well, it's the shortest, most vague article I think I have ever seen in this space about major companies doing blockchain stuff. BP and Shell are looking into blockchaining the energy industry to track oil shipments and other logistics and things. And because it's actually them doing it instead of some consulting company trying to convince them to, it's actually going to happen, guys.
Intern at BP
Right.
Shell has Google search record of looking up blockchain stuff.
Serialize all the liquids.
I'm just looking it up, and yeah, their stock price is up a little bit.
Well, that will happen if you do put blockchain in your PR literature. Your stock price will go up. I think that's the proven thing.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of like.
Well, I was just going to say that at least if they're tracking oil now, that's going to be a disaster if they have another spill, because, that's going to be immutable, I guess.
Oh.
Wait a minute, guys.
Or maybe they'll pull an Ethereum and, split off and reverse that.
Guys, Ethereum can't call itself the digital oil now. There's actually going to be digital oil.
Oh, shit. You're right. So what are they going to be? Like the slime to the oil, to BP's oil? What are they going to be?
The perpetual Ponzi machine?
The perpetual Ponzi scheme. Good.
they're gonna be the refined part.
All right. Final thoughts then. What do we got?
Final thought, I guess, for today is just like, man, we're almost through a 2x. Let's keep going, guys. We're almost done with this.
I mean, look at Bitcoin go. It's still going down right now. It's like $6,945 on Bitfinex. It's meeting that horizontal support, but it's like, I don't know, people are getting jitters before the fork, but I think a lot of people bought the coins because they thought, well, it's a free dividend, right? If I just buy, no one's want to short. Nobody wants to short in case they have to, you know, pay back for all the 2x tokens that come in. So we will see, but I think Bitcoin is responding really positively. And I think what Eric's working on is very positive.
Bitcoin's dead, everybody. Run for the hills. Dead.
Yeah.
Retrace back to 900.
Sorry, just one more final comment was like, if anybody out there is like a coder or an animator or somebody that wants to help with that chain split token, you know, go look up chain split on Twitter. I'm sure we'll have the link down there, and get in touch because they could use your help.
Sweet. All right.
Right. Final words. If you're a 2x supporter, then come on the show and have a chat.
Well, the thing is, people have been trying to find 2x supporters to interview them on other shows, and they've had a real problem finding people that support 2x that would be willing to.
I think, you know, we've had people, you know, from a list of people from I guess, different opinions that you wouldn't think would come on a show with, you know, such contrasting opinions. And I think it went fine. So they should just come on here and discuss, you know, what's going on. The fork is coming up. People want to know. People want to hear discourse. So let's do it.
I like that idea.
Barry, whenever you choose to come out of hiding, we'll give you a safe place to come. It's okay.
Yeah, we want to finally answer the question, where's Barry?
He's under N time lock past the fork.
We need to create a safe space for Barry. Safe space, free from the toxic trolling of the likes of Shinobi. All right.
Hey, I have an off switch for my toxicity, Chris, and I think I've demonstrated that on here multiple times.
You are. You're getting better. You're getting better. Wow. All right. Should we do the outro? Well, what should people do if maybe they enjoyed the show? Is there any call to action?
I think there's like a thumbs up thing that you might be able to depress to create a certain effect.
Yeah, but what if they didn't like it? What should they do then?
No, just comment.
Comment. Don't dislike.
Just comment.
Just comment. So if you liked it, press the upvote button thing so that we can get all our metrics going, our vanity. Maybe we can start like monetizing with ads and throw you lots of ICO bullshit, you know, in between all the segments of the shows. But if you didn't like it, just put a comment in. All right? But only if you want to.
All right, now Chris, get back to work doing proof of work by hand in the basement.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. All right. Later on, guys.
Bye-bye.
Say bye. Say bye.